Hi. Um, Good morning on Kim's side of the world, and good afternoon here, I suppose, in India. And this is part two of the recording of an earlier series that we had done with Kim, who is actually being a strategic advisor consultant to companies on strategic business models. He's been a professor at the London Business School. So, in the part two of the series, we're going to be looking at how the interplay of the strategic business models really come into picture and how organizations can use it, thrive from it, and then tweak their business models so that it really represents what's there out in the physical world, and most importantly, how enterprise architects and IT folks can make use of this and get a grip on the business and run them smoothly and effectively. All the more very important during the times of the pandemic and when the world recovers after that. So welcome, Kim. Do explain us, how you could use this. I'm sure you have a couple of demos ready today to walk us through how you can really use them, keep them updated so that it really mimics the real world around. So how can people, mostly IT professionals and enterprise architects, use this effectively for making business decisions?
Sure. Okay. Last time we and the relationship with potential relationship with enterprise architectures. So what I thought I'd do in this second part of the interview is just explain a little bit about how you go about building one of these, and then I'll show you a dynamic business model of it will have to be a very simple business, but it is a real business. And then we can then talk about how that's actually being used. So whether you're building a model to deal with an issue, or whether you're building a model to be a plan for a business or a plan for a function, you start with the same thing, which is a quantified diagram of what the performance outcome is that you want to see over time. So if it's a new business, then the cash flow is going to go negative, but you want it to come positive, and you're going to take that to investors and say, look, if you give us X million dollars or euros or whatever, then it will get no worse than this, and then you will start seeing the cash come back. If you're building a model about building a skilled team of staff, then you'll say, well, we've got 50 of these people and we want 200 of those people in 3 years' time. So what's the time path that we grow those people along? So we all start with that same chart. And what you do then, you follow something. I've discovered this has actually got a proper name. It's called an abductive reasoning process. And what you do is you say, so what causes that? Right. So if we're taking company profit as our performance outcome, what causes that? Well, it's revenue minus costs. So you then drill back to revenue. You say, well, what's the time path of what revenue is going to do? What's the time path of what costs are going to do? So then you go to revenue and say, what causes that? Well, revenue comes from customers multiplied by sales per customer. So you work back to the next thing in the line. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. This is like you're saying the Toyota 6 whys, keep asking the why, and finally you have answers to all your whys, typically.
Well, yes, that's a good connection to make, actually. It is a kind of why. But what we're doing here is we're being much more rigorous about that, because every action that we're making can be calculated. It's not just saying, in some general way, customers drive sales. Well, no, it's how many customers changing at what rate over time, multiplied by their sales rate changing over time, gives rise to what revenue over time. So that's step 1 and 2. Step 1 is the performance time chart. Step 2 is drill back down along that chain. And at some point, you will reach one of these things called accumulating stocks. So cash is an accumulating stock. That's what we do with our balance sheet and cash flow. Right? Customers are an accumulating stock, staff are an accumulating stock, our product range is an accumulating stock. They are just real things in the real world. So when you ask the question, why is the customer number changing like this? It has to be because you've been winning them at some rate and losing them at some rate. That there is no other explanation. It's the physics of how the world works. So that's step 3. Step 4, the next thing you're trying to explain is, why are customers one at this rate? Well, they're one at this rate because our product appeal has got this rating, our price is this, we've got this number of sales calls being made. Why are customers being lost at this rate? Well, they're being lost at that rate because our service quality is X rather than Y, because our competitors are charging a lower price. So those rates are, so when you've completed that process, what you've got is all the connections between all the things that make the system what it is. And somebody just reminded me a couple of days ago that analogy that we use, which is a very good analogy actually, is that a business or an enterprise of any kind, it could be a non-profit business or a government agency, it is a machine. It's a machine designed for a purpose, and the purpose is to produce some output. Now, the output might be the products and the sales that those products generate. In commercial cases, the machine is designed to make money, right? So what we're doing here is we're building a model of the machine, just as you would build the model of an engineering machine. So I said in part 1 of this interview that you can build these machine models, if you like, either for a whole enterprise or for a particular issue that you want to understand. But if I can share my screen.
Yes. Kim, I'm going to make you the presenter, the transformer rights. The host. Okay. Yeah, you are the host now.
Okay. So this. So are you seeing my screen okay?
Yes. Success case open.co.uk.
Okay.
You guys were a home improvement company, I suppose. Yeah.
Right. So this is. Did I mention this in part 1?
No, you didn't. You
Okay.
just, I think, actually talked about the fact that you work with some of these founders.
Yeah, sure. So this is a real business. It was a new business started in 2015. It's very much easier to explain these things in relation to new and small businesses because they tend to be focused on one activity. So when we demonstrate these models, it's clear. We do build much bigger models of much more complicated businesses. But this is an example of a simple startup launched in 2015. This is what it does. If you're going to have an extension built on your house, or you're going to have your kitchen refitted, or you're going to have some other thing done, it's a big project for a homeowner. It's not the kind of thing you do every day, so you probably aren't very skilled at it. You've got no experience of this. So what you need is some help. And what this business does is it's delivered online, but it is this is, if you like, a project manager service for homeowners. So what do they have to do? Well, they're going to provide start to end support for the project. And before that, then they've actually got to help you design the project. So they attract owners to their website with web marketing and word of mouth. So a customer comes along and says, yes, I would like this project done. So the people on this service help you specify that project. Meanwhile, other people in the business have gone and recruited contractors who are able to do this. So it's no good saying we'll help you with a kitchen project if you haven't got any kitchen contractors, right? So you've got to have enough kitchen contractors to do the kitchen projects that are coming. When the project then kicks off, you then go through stages. So you put out an invitation to tender. So the contractors say, well, we will do this for X thousand pounds, or we will do it for Y thousand pounds. The staff in this business help you judge the merits of those bids. They then help you award the contract. They then supervise the contractor to deliver the project and make sure that it is done to specification. So the contractor, I think the homeowner pays a percentage of the contract value to this company, in exchange for getting the thing well managed. So it's not actually a very complicated business. It's complicated to actually operate because it's quite difficult to find the contractors and validate them and all that kind of stuff. So that's what this business does. So let's have a look at what the model does for this business. This is a top level. This is at the top of the model. If you like, it's a control panel. And what it shows.
Was it an online business, Kim? All of this was happening online.
It's all online. Yeah, it's all online. I think some of their support staff may go out on site to check project progress, but the actual service is all delivered online. So this is a top level management control panel, if you like. This is the balanced scorecard for the business, and it's showing what's happening over 100 weeks. Okay, so we've got 2 years here, and this is what's happening to the number of inquiries coming in. This is what's happening to the number of projects actually in the planning stage, and this is the completion rate. Now down here, we're tracking the quality factors. So what is the actual project quality as assessed by recently completed customers? So customers has a project completed, and you get that kind of 5-star rating thing. You know, what did you think of our service? Only in more detail. And these indicators here are indicators of how effectively you convert inquiries into projects, given your reputation for doing it well. So there's the service quality, there's the project quality. Over here is the financials. And there are not many key decisions you have to make. I mean, you have to decide how many service staff you need. You have to decide how many contractors you will want. It's not the number you need now that you need to worry about. It's the number you're going to need in 3 to 6 months' time. And you need to decide how much you're going to spend on marketing. So that's essentially. Now, what I'll do, Kieran, is I will provide you with a copy of these slides in which there are links to all of this material, right? So this actually is a demonstration model you can run yourself, right? Click on that link, it will open and run. So let me actually show you that right now. There is the model, and I can make it run. I can take it back to a certain point in time. I want to see where we will be at week 52. So I'm just dragging the time bar back there. I can play that out over 2 years. If I want to focus, this looks like an interesting period here. What's happening there?
There's a spike.
Yeah. So we are currently around week 30 or 40 or something, and it looks like we're planning on a big boost in marketing spend to bring in more inquiries. So what exactly is happening there? Well, let's zoom in and have a look. So we'll pull it right in. We'll zoom in on just that part of the time scale there, so we can see exactly what's happening over those few weeks around that time. Now, if you have a look at that, you can see, well, the service quality and the project quality are both, that's not going well. So maybe we need to be more gentle about our marketing plan. So here's a scenario. We can turn on a scenario here that says, okay, we will increase the marketing spend, but we'll do it more gently. We could even start earlier, as long as we don't do this big, lots of people come in right now. What that allows us to do is we need to hire people a little faster than we planned. So you can see that the number of people is growing faster down here. I think you can see that the number of contractors is increasing more. So this is a strategy exploration. It's a scenario where we explore what would happen if we changed the way we make decisions. Okay, and it's trivial to use this once you
get a hang of it. Yeah.
So let me just back up to how this model is actually used. So that there is a diagram of the working part of the model, and I can actually show you where that is in the. Where's it gone? Okay, that's all this stuff down here. Right. There's the project pipeline. There's the customer support staff. There's your web marketing. Here's the recruitment of contractors. That is the working model. Now, this might all look scary, right? If you've never seen one of these things before, you think, oh my God, what's going on here? All you've got to think of is that every one of these things is like a column in a spreadsheet with the week's values going down the column, and the arrows are cell references between the columns. That's essentially all that's going on. But you could never build this model in a spreadsheet. You couldn't get your head around how to do it. It's not, what have we got here? 30 odd items. There's not very many items, but it's the relationships between them that are the complications here. And you could, believe me, you could not get your head around this, trying to build this in a spreadsheet. But that's what one of these working models actually is. So what I did just want to say is a word about how it's used. This is Rod Brown. He's the guy who built this business. Now, what did he do? Well, he actually built this model before he started the business. He's built it in his office at home before he'd raised any money, before he'd hired any people, before he'd got any finance directors or marketing heads or anything of that kind. He built this in his study to work out how the business could work. If we recruit people at this rate, if we do this marketing at this rate, if that brings inquiries at that rate, if we hire this rate of contractors, oh yeah, it looks like we could grow the volume of business at this rate, and it looks like our revenue could grow like this, our costs would do this, and this is what our profits would do. As soon as he started running the business, every week he was putting real data in the model. The early weeks of what I just showed you is real data from the real business, right? So every week that goes by, he and in particular, his head of finance, his head of marketing, his head of contractor recruitment, they sit down in front of this model and they say, what does the latest week tell us about where we're going? And what does that imply for the decisions we are about to take on pricing, marketing, hiring people, and employing contractors, right? Now, what that allowed him to do was he went to a venture funding business. It's a division of the UK's largest insurance company. They funded the business with £3 million of venture capital.
Okay.
Yeah, and what he was then able to do is that built the business. And I think the latest news is probably on here. Yeah, in June 2018, there's a top ranked retailer here. It's not a large retailer, but it's a premium retailer. They run kind of premium supermarket stores here and premium homeware stores. And they bought the business. They bought the business out at that time, along with the model to help them best manage it. So that's what it is, right? So
even before, so even before he started the business, you said he actually drew up the entire business plan in his bedroom, or like as you said, from his house.
He built this model. He built this model.
Yeah, so that he could just project the numbers and go to the investors and say, this is how the business can look once it gets started.
Yeah. Now, it's an important point here. There is no other balanced scorecard. There is no other KPI system. There are no other management reports going on here. They manage the whole business with this model. There's nothing else. You don't need anything else. It is the best KPI system you could ever have. It's the best scorecard you could ever have. If there were competitors here, we would put competitors in the model as well, which you don't normally see in balanced scorecards or indeed in KPI systems. But that's the power of what these things can do. So I hope that's given your audience an idea of just how powerful these models are.
Yes, actually, so how do you incorporate intangibles into this model? For instance, things like contractors not matching up to client expectations and things like that, which can give you a bad word of mouth, for instance, if that were to happen.
Yeah.
So incorporate those kind of things here.
Okay. I've included a little bit of that in this demonstration model.
Okay.
I can't give you Rod's real model because that's got kind of secret stuff in it, right?
Sure.
And some of the secret stuff is what does that kind of quality thing do to the reputation of the business among people who have these projects done. Now, when people are doing these kinds of projects, a very common thing they do is they talk to their friends at the school gate or at the supermarket or wherever it is. So it's really important that they maintain the satisfaction level with the customers they have already had, and that is in the model. And you know those ratings we give these things, those kind of 5-star ratings. Well, that's just on a 0 to 1 scale. 0 says you're absolutely useless. 1 says you're absolutely perfect. Where on that scale am I? Now, if I am at 0.7 on that scale, what does that do to the conversion of inquiries into projects? Now, if that's a low number, first of all, I'm not going to convert marketing spend into many inquiries. And secondly, I'm not going to convert many inquiries into projects. Okay, so that's where intangibles feature in the model. And so
I think correct. So as long as you're factoring that, you get a hang of the business.
Okay, so if that's enough on what these models are and how they work, there's much more to be said about that. Oh, by the way, there is a link here to an interview with Rod Brown about how he uses this model. So if anyone wants to go and hear Rod talk about what he actually does, then you can go there. So we need to come back to how can this be helpful to people in the IT field, right? And I think we mentioned last time that almost everyone in that field will be coming from a mindset that says a business model is a process model. Yeah, it's a process model. So look around. Hold on. Look around that diagram. Where are the processes in here? Well, there is a process to convert an inquiry into a plan. These customer support people up here actually do a process to get a homeowner's inquiry converted into a project. So that's a process there, right? When the project is in progress, there are processes going on to complete that project. When they appoint a new contractor, there is a process going on in there. So what that process is that they have to advertise for applicant contractors. They have to vet those contractors. They have to go through kind of criminal records checks. They have to go through their certifications and that kind of thing to say, yes, you are an okay contractor. Then they have to negotiate with the contractor what the terms are going to be. So inside that thing there is called a flow rate. It's the rate at which we appoint contractors. There's actually a little pipeline of stages inside there. And that's where a process is. So in any system dynamics model, processes are located at particular places. So if I can show you an example of this, I didn't talk about this last time, did I? The hiring process.
No.
Okay. So just to demonstrate exactly what the link is, at the top of that model for open, there was a staff population, the customer support staff. Those customer support staff are hired. So what's the hiring process? Well, the hiring process is place a job advert, screen the applications, issue job offers, receive acceptances. Have we got the number of people we want? If we have, stop hiring. If we haven't, place another job advert. Right? A real hiring process is a bit more complicated than that, but that's basically it. Now, if you look at this, all of the phrases in here are verb phrases. Place a job advert, screen applications, issue job offers, right? They're all verbs. They are things somebody is doing, right? It can be perfectly rigorous, but those are verbs, and there are no numbers on it, right? It doesn't say place 2 job adverts or screen 500 applications, right? There are no numbers on that. This is a system dynamics model of exactly the same process, right? This is how many applications per week are being received. Sorry, start here. Are we placing a job advert this week? Yes or no? 1, 0. If we are, how many applications per week are we receiving? We receive a lot in the first week after the ad. We receive a few more the next week and very few the week after that. How many applications do we therefore have in progress that we are reviewing? Think of this as an inbox. This is an inbox of applications that we're screening. What is the rate at which we send offers out? And the others are, what's the rate we reject those offers? So here's the number of people considering our offer. Here's the number of appointments. This is the total hired. And this is the one that says, have we got the number of people we wanted to hire? We wanted to hire 35 people. We've actually got 37. We're there, right? Got what we need. So we don't do this anymore. Now, this too is a working model. So if you go to this link here, the people watching this recording can actually go and run this, and they can see what would happen if you wanted more staff, or if you rejected a higher fraction of the applicants who apply. Now, what's the difference? Well, the difference is that everything in this model is nouns. These are all nouns. This is applications. This is applications. This is candidates. This is staff hired. And they're all quantified over time. So what this means, this is great news. If anyone in your field wants to convert a process that they're trying to evaluate into a working model, that's how you do it. It's essentially difficult. And if you want to convert a process map of a whole organization, like the open one, for example, you just go around process after process and do this to it. It's not technically a difficult thing to do, and immensely powerful. I think
sorry to interrupt you. One question here, when you said you're changing the verbs to the nouns, so these applications for reviews could also be read as review the applications, which means it's like a verb-like thing, right? So what was the changing the verbs to the nouns?
Every item in the model is a noun. It's a thing. It's got a quantity to it, all right?
So that's the reason it's a noun.
Yeah, it's representing an activity that somebody is doing. So place job advert, yes or no. So this is, are we placing a job advert, yes or no? Right. So this is a job advert being placed. That's a thing. It's a 1-0 thing. It either exists or it doesn't. Hold on. Ooh. This thing up here actually isn't in this process diagram, but it's implied by that, okay? Because between there and there, applications actually come in, right? And that's what that item is representing. So everything in our models is a noun. And a mistake that beginners make when they start building these models is that they will draw these diagrams out without any numbers on them, and then they will start putting verbs on them, and it doesn't work. And it's not necessary. It's not a problem.
So the idea is to make somebody responsible for that activity, it becomes a noun.
Well, somebody is responsible for doing this. So if we look at this, for example, there will be somebody in the HR department who is responsible for converting applications into offers. So they have got an in tray, and you say to them, look, you will have 70 applications on your desk next week. We need you to convert them into 15 job offers within the same week. and the next week you will have 40, and we need you to convert that into 12 job adverts. So that there is somebody doing these things, right? But this is the rate at which they're doing them. That's essentially it.
What if the process were to be automated? In this case, we still show them the same way. I mean, there's a process that does the screening. Say, let us say there's a bot which does the automation. So call it a bot and then show it.
That's a really important point, actually. Long ago, we learned how to automate things like controlling factory equipment, right? We did that. How do you do that? Well, you look at what the machine is producing, you look at what you want it to produce, and then you pull a lever to change the rate at which it's producing things, right?
Yeah.
What we've done over recent decades is we've rolled out that principle across more and more decisions that managers make. So when I was young and I wanted a loan to buy a car, I went to see my bank manager, and the bank manager said, "Oh, yeah, I think I can trust you. Yes, you can have the loan," right? We don't do that anymore. Banks have a form you fill in to say, "I want a loan." There is a piece of technology that goes and looks at your credit score and says yes or no, right? We've automated what used to be a human decision.
Know your customer and all of that sort of stuff.
And the same, you asked about the hiring process. Well, the same thing happens there. People fill in online job applications, and there is, I suppose you call it a bot, but it's essentially a kind of intelligent routine that says, well, I'll go through all these criteria and say, well, I will offer this person a job and I won't offer them a job. But you're exactly right that more and more of those processes are getting automated by the system. And in fact, what Rod Brown was able to do with the home projects model was to automate the trigger that says go find more contractors. Okay. So if inquiries are coming in at a faster rate, so an alert immediately goes out that says go find more contractors, because otherwise we're going to be short of capacity. But you're dead right there. Yeah. So I used the machine analogy for what a business is earlier on in the interview. Well, we put control systems around the machine, right? And some control systems are good and some control systems are not so good. So a very common bad control system is ratio-based financial controls. So in my commercial career before I joined London Business School, I was in the restaurant and hotel industry. And in retailing, a very common thing you do is you control labor costs by setting a percentage. So say, okay, what is the percentage cost of revenue we're spending on labor? Oh, it's 15. We don't want it to be more than 12. Cut back your staff. So now, does that sound like a good rule? Well, what happens if sales go down? Sales go down, the labor cost ratio goes up. You say, oh, fire some people. We can't afford it. So you fire more people. What does that do to service quality? Service quality goes down, revenue goes down. You fire more people, service quality goes down, right? There are some very dysfunctional policies built into the way that we run our businesses. And these models will show you that. They will show you how, they won't just show you that in principle, they will show you at what point it will happen. So what the online classes that we provide, class 8 is how to design a policy like that will not be dysfunctional.
Yeah, I think
I need to talk less and listen more to your questions now, because I'm sure you've got more questions.
So exactly.
On behalf of your audience, right?
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So actually, thing was, what's an experience of these models being used by theory of constraint audience or consultants? Because I think this is a very good model wherein you can find out what is the, as you said, the bottleneck or where you are loading the system to the brim and where the overflow happens, you can really pinpoint. So theory of constraints talks about throughput accounting, for instance, as you said, like if you've got too much inventory in your
Yeah,
warehouses and there's not enough sales, and then you're actually burning, either you've got live costs there, but you're not converting that into revenue, and then the owner is like a cash deficit situation. So I think this can be a very good application for identifying the bottlenecks in the whole chain, wherever
absolutely.
they set it. And
Yeah, the model. Let's say that you're in a I've built a model with a Turkish a medium-sized manufacturing company. They make plastic packaging for meat and dairy products. You'll find these businesses in every region of every country. It's not a large company sector, it's a mid-sized company sector. So that they've got orders coming in from customers. Now, can I meet those orders? Well, have I got enough physical capacity? Have I got enough staff to run the machines? Have I got enough orders for the raw materials? Have I got enough delivery capacity to get the orders out? So at any point in time, any of those four things could be the constraint that will stop you fulfilling customer orders, right? But
yes,
the model will tell you.
correct, correct.
It won't just tell you that you've hit that constraint. It will tell you that you are going to hit that constraint and
Correct.
when,
Yeah, yeah.
on the basis of the rate that things are changing in your business. So yeah, one of the things I've found working with this method over many years is that many of the theories and principles that we already use out there just drop into this method very naturally. It's very easy to drop them in.
Yeah. For instance, like the push and pull from the Kanban world, like, you should not be pushing
Yeah.
stuff for more load than what you can. Like Don Reinstein's work, wherein he says you should only pull as much as that you can chew.
Yeah.
But if
Well,
you do it more than that, then yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, the production operations profession and the supply chain profession,
yeah, that's all right.
they cracked this decades
Correct.
ago. They
Correct.
know
Correct.
how to
Exactly.
design manufacturing systems and supply chain systems that
Yeah,
will
yeah.
not break, right? All
Correct,
we're
correct.
doing is saying, well, why don't you design staffing systems that won't break? Why don't you design marketing systems that don't break? And why don't you design the whole enterprise so that the relationships between all those parts won't break as well? That's
Correct.
essentially.
Because they say if you load your staff optimization to 100%, then your efficiency, at one point of time, your efficiency is zero because there's a queuing rate in front of the staff that's a lot more than what they can handle. And so like it's a huge, tremendous bottleneck. And beyond, you cannot get anything further. So I think, as you said, all the other industries have done it long ago, like supply chain, automobile, or any plant shop kind of a thing. But I think the lessons of that we need to apply in the IT world, wherein staff is at work and resources are at work, and then how can you just load them optimally, just enough so that you get the most efficient output and not overloading them too much. So I think this model kind of helps do that. And what has been your aha moment in your consulting journey using this approach? Like, one is your Turkish client. You said I also saw your exercise on the Ryanair thing you put up on YouTube, when you talked about the Ryanair case study and how they run a real low-cost airline with very meager numbers and startling numbers when their competitors charge 5 to 6 times that money, or perhaps more. And these guys are going to. Was that fictitious one, or was it based on real numbers? The Ryan case study one.
Oh, yeah. If any of your audience go and look at that case, we use that case for one particular reason, and that is everybody knows what a low-fi airline is, and Ryanair is one of the very rare examples of a large public corporation that publishes all of its numbers.
Oh, okay.
Just about all of its numbers, not quite all, but very nearly all. So that was a model built from outside the business. I had no access to the company to build that model.
Oh, okay.
That's why that model is built. When I do this work in a consulting mode, I'm inside the company and I'm getting the data to build. I helped Rod Brown later on to do some extensions to his model. So I was in the business with Rod saying, okay, well, we need to get this information here. We need to put it into the model in this way. He was too busy running the business at that time to actually do any more building. Yeah, inside the business, you're asking the people who actually run each part of it what the numbers are doing. And one little side benefit here is that there's an awful lot of kind of dispute and argument that goes on between different parts of an organization. I remember one company I worked with, the head of customer service and the head of sales were at each other's throats, because the service guy was accusing the sales guy of selling stuff they couldn't deliver, and the sales guy was accusing the service guy of not supporting the business adequately. Well, if you put the numbers in front of them on both sides of the debate, you can see what's happening to the amount of service we can provide. You can see what's happening to the amount of service that's coming from the number of customers that the sales guy is winning.
Yeah.
The argument goes away because both sides can see what the problem is. Yeah.
Okay. So this helps you reduce the blame game completely.
Yeah.
It's making everything visible and transparent. Is there a tool? Are there tools out there that will help people design these models? Like I could see that you're using Silco or something, like you use that tool. Apart from that, are there other tools, or is that the only tool that can help you do this?
Well, there are a number of software tools. The software tool, the category of software tools you need is system dynamics modeling software, right?
Okay.
There are
five, so you have a Gartner. Sorry, Kim, do you have a Gartner thing also, which says, okay, these are the kind of tool vendors in that space? So as Gartner,
I actually don't know.
Okay.
It's possible. But if you go and look up system dynamics,
strategic dynamic modeling. Okay.
All I would say here, though, is that there are many tools you could build these models with. The most important tool is the process you go through to build it. Right?
Okay.
Now that I've put that down in. Let me just put this in the chat. Now, there is a traditional approach to building these models, which I fear has held the field back because it takes too long and it costs too much. And what that process does is it asks people to map out these models on paper qualitatively and cover the entire scope of what we want the model to do. And then you throw the diagram over the wall to some expert model builder who then tries to make it into a working quantified model. That is quite analogous, actually, to the old waterfall approach to building IT systems, right?
Yeah.
So many years ago, I got frustrated with that process because it didn't work and you ended up with bad models. So I went back to the fundamentals of what you need to do, and that's where I got to that abductive process that you go through. So if you go through that process, whether you're building a model for an issue or for a whole business, you have a much better chance of building a useful, reliable model like the one that Rod Brown built. So that's where I've given you there is a link to just a very short article that explains that process. There is a much more detailed article about it.
So this is a white paper which tells you what is the business case for these kind of models and the relevancy of this, and how all of that interacts.
Yeah, well, you'll find a lot of that stuff on the courses that we offer on our website.
Okay,
So
okay. Okay. I'll link up that down below. Yes.
I'll put my sales hat on at this point, right? but
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
what I do. I sell people the training in how to do this. So
Sure, sure. I'll link up those links, I think, below this video. So I think it will be a good one. So,
okay, I will share with you the slides that we've talked about in this interview and the last one, and then you can share that with your people.
yeah. And one more thing was, what was your aha moment in your consulting that kind of blew you off? One is, of course, the open thing that you talked about. Any such other instances that comes to your mind that you really saw the power of this working rather than strategizing using, as you said, balanced scorecards or other passive forms of getting a grip on your business. So this is like dynamic, live numbers are out there, and you really get that. So
Yeah, well, when I joined London Business School, I was teaching strategy with all the tools that were available at the time, and I think I mentioned it in interview one that those tools were not very helpful to the IT field because they didn't give you this idea of how the business actually works, and it was only when a colleague showed me what System Dynamics could do that I realized what the power of this thing is. It is set aside what I've done with it. It is awesomely powerful. I still meet senior consulting companies in PwC and McKinsey and that, like, who simply can't believe that it's possible to build a simulation of a working enterprise. Well, why not? Somebody designed the business in the first place. They must have had some idea of how the darn thing was supposed to work. So that was the light bulb moment for me when I saw that it was possible to produce a working simulation of a real enterprise. And the second light bulb moment was when there's something in the strategy field called the resource-based view, and basically says, an organization depends on the resources that are necessary to make it effective. The mistake that the strategy field made was they ignored all of the tangible resources. They said, well, never mind about customers, never mind about staff, never mind about products, never mind about cash. The only thing that matters is intangibles. Well, excuse me, customers drive sales. If your model doesn't have customers in it, it can't tell you what your sales are going to do, right?
correct.
Those are the two light bulb moments, seeing the power of what System Dynamics could do, and then that actually we can specify these resources very clearly, and allow us to build very reliable models for any kind of enterprise you'd like.
Okay. So the second one was more to do with trying to do a trial run or a dry run of who your customers are and what are the numbers even before you start off a business. So that's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and do a dry run for anything that's going to happen to you. It doesn't have to be a new venture. We're looking right now at how some businesses will start to recover as the coronavirus pandemic fades away. What will so you explore any unknown future with models of this kind.
So I think it helps a lot of startups and medium-sized companies save and avoid the money that's being burnt, so that they can really try out on the simulation stuff and spend little on it, and then rather than really burn them in the real world and see, okay, it doesn't work. So
Yes, precisely. Let's experiment on software, not with real people and real cash.
Sure. Thanks, Kim. So any last words of advice for decision makers and business designers or enterprise architects, based on what they should be having a grip on, what kind of metrics they should be looking at in terms of running their business? Because I'm sure you have seen a diverse spectrum of such businesses. So what comes to your mind that probably your
there are quite a lot of kind of general tips that come out. So a very common one builds on that point about dysfunctional financial controls. Many businesses make it very hard for themselves to be successful and to grow because the finance controls say don't spend the money that needs to be spent. So you could make 20% return on capital, but you'd never have enough money to grow the business. So would you rather have 20% return on capital for a business that doesn't go anywhere, or a 15% return on capital for a company that's growing 30% a year? I know which I'd rather have. That's a very, very common thing that you'll find. I think just a reminder though for your audience to actually look back at interview one, because in interview one we talked about how this relates to the development of enterprise architectures.
Yeah. We did talk about TOGAF and relation to that also. Correct. Absolutely. Right.
Good.
So thank you very much for your time, and I'll surely for the links, and I'll add it at the bottom of this interview. So I think if you can just collect all of them and send. And have a good week ahead, and I suppose stay safe. Thank you very much again for your time. And
you're very welcome. And can I end by wishing everybody in India in particular the very best to escape from this awful pandemic. And we are very sympathetic to how bad things are for you over there. So our best wishes to you all. Yeah,
thanks, Kim. I think India needs a lot of such wishes and prayers from everybody all around. So I think hopefully we'll all get out of this together. And the situation is grim. So yeah, I think we need prayers and blessings from everyone.